started here. So my name's Pearl. I work at a digital health company in Madison, Wisconsin. So a couple hours different. So it's almost my bedtime. I won't dawdle. Whoops, sorry. Technical difficulties. So in the next 5 to 7 minutes, my goal is to answer for you 2 questions. First, what is a progressive web app? Or PWA, as the cool kids say, and why might you want to build one? Now, I'm not going to talk about how to build one. There's no code in this presentation. We don't have time for that, but I'll point you to some resources to get started. So what is a PWA? A PWA is a website. This website that I'm showing you is a PWA. It's also the site for a conference that I'm organizing. So you can take a look at that later. But getting back on track, a PWA is a website that can act like a native mobile app in some important and interesting ways. For instance, a PWA is installable. So here's an image of that website that I showed you installed on my laptop. And you can see it looks like any other app that you would have installed. You can also install a PWA on your device's home screen. It will live like any other app you've got on your phone in a little icon. And when you click the icon, it will expand without the browser Chrome around it. So it will display just like any other app will display. Not only is it installable, but PWAs work offline. And this work offline stuff is super important. This brings us to the heart, really to the magic of the PWA. So the superhero of the PWA is the service worker. A service worker is a web worker, like Spider-Man, but unlike Spider-Man, it's written in JavaScript, and it acts as kind of a proxy between your web app and the network. So in our normal day-to-day, our web applications interact directly with the network, with servers on the network. But you can drop a service worker in there that can mediate those interactions. Service workers can intercept network requests. And this means that some pretty cool things can happen. So for example, say your web app makes a request to a server and you've got a service worker. The service worker could see that request, pass it on to the server, and then when the server responds, the service worker can take whatever assets are in that response, so images, data, HTML, CSS, it can take those assets and tuck them in its cache. The service worker has its own cache, and it can put assets there. And then the next time it receives the same request, the service worker could say, oh, well, I already have the assets that I need to respond. So it can just respond with the assets in the cache. So that's pretty huge. That means that your application can respond to a request without making a round trip to the network. And it can even respond when there is no network access at all. So I think that this is super exciting. I think the implications of this are pretty huge. So first, a service worker can make your web application super reliable, regardless of network connectivity. And it can also make your web application super fast. Because the service worker can serve assets from the cache without having to make the round trip to the network, it can load almost instantly if if it has the assets it needs in the cache. So even if you don't really care about installability, a progressive web app can really help you have great performance. So I think that's pretty cool, right? This is just only scratching the surface. Service workers aren't the only tech involved in progressive web apps, and there's a lot more that service workers can do. But enough about service workers. Let's talk about you. Should you build a PWA? PWAs aren't the solution to every problem. So for instance, if you need to interact with device APIs that aren't supported by browsers, then it would make a lot more sense for you to make a native app. But if your use case allows it, a PWA can be a great alternative to a native app. I mean, first, it's a lot cheaper and easier to make one web application than multiple mobile apps plus a website. And in addition, if you're a web developer rather than a native developer, creating a PWA is working with a completely familiar web stack. It's HTML, JavaScript, CSS. Even if you don't really, even if your target isn't mobile, and using the progressive web app techniques can make any web application quicker, more reliable, and installable, and altogether more awesome. There are lots of resources out there for getting started. These are a few that I would recommend. I would start with the free course on Udacity. It's a good course and a great place to start. And if you have any other questions about resources or anything else, we can do what a good service worker would do and take it offline. Thank you.